Hello everyone, welcome back to Ansarkari. So, taking up next set of important topics for a detailed and critical analysis of the topics. So, first is related to Indian space sector. Currently, India contributes 2% to the world space activities. So, recently we see that PSLV C-59 places Proba 3 satellites into the designated orbit with precision. So, as we've been talking about precision based agriculture, scientific agriculture, we are seeing precision based innovations happening in the space sector. So, India is a global leader, particularly in space sector, is important. And here we are seeing that different missions, like this is for the European Space Agency, Proba 3, which stands for Project for Onboard Autonomy Mission, which will be studying the sun's outer atmosphere, which is called Corona. And this has been recently launched by the PSLV C-59. So, how quickly this or such types of launches are replicated by India would be determining the competitiveness in the international space activities and wider participation of, for example, the startups or like recently constituted in space for the commercialization of the space activities will uh, decide this. Like we have the global players, for example, SpaceX is there. So the replication is also somewhere going to decide. And another advantage that India offers is the competitive cost of the different projects also. So even worlds looks at Indian space missions also from that point of view. So we can talk about the Indian skills of Jugaad or relying more upon the um, again the local raw materials availability, or it is completely self-reliant and indigenous. So that is also important for competitiveness. So importance of the culture and the heritage. So preserving that. So one of the ways is through organizing different film festivals. So here we see Kolkata International Film Festival has been organized, and seeing recent even global trend of uh, presenting or reviving the cult classics is being adopted here also. So they are being in a way being revived back to present them to the new generation so that they are aware about them or the heritage or the culture that existed before. So different cult classics which would be showcased includes Manthan, which was by Sham Benegal. Then Thampu is there. So there's different examples, and it will be providing us an experience on the big screen also. So these would be again in the regional Indian languages. So it showcases the diversity which exists in India and the international trend. For example, if we look at the Cannes Festival or at the Venice also. So that is also in sync. And here institutional stakeholders, for example, who can further promote this across different states, because in India we know about that the richness of diversity exists. So every state has that certain kind of classical theater art forms, or even when we just talk about the films also. So National Film Archive of India and the National Film Development Corporation have played important role in restoration of these cult classics. So it's an important article which is talking about the challenges towards India being Viksit Bharat by 2047. So one recent, it is connecting with that the second quarter growth shocker. Like we have all the numbers, then why did the economists or the even statisticians, they missed this, the number, they were not able to better forecast. We can like be okay with certain percentage or certain amount of error, but not such a huge error when the prediction was 7% of the growth, but it turned out to be 5.4%. So one is this indicating towards the need for these statistical reforms also. And like recently also we've talked about that the GDP base year would also be shifting to 2022-23 as well. So these are certain measures, particularly in terms of GDP and adoption of the new GDP series. Then apart from this, the challenges particularly includes the mismatch in the growth forecast. Second, the twin challenge of high taxation being imposed by India and the rapid decline in the foreign investment. The recent trend that is seen particularly in investment is also a challenge to the future growth. And then we have the effectiveness of the monetary policy is also somewhere a point under discussion these days. So we have the question that when it comes to determining the policy rate, what inflation figure should be used, whether it should be core inflation or the headline inflation. So we have one more article based on this. We'll talk about this in detail, which should be relied upon. Then we have the large divergences in the per capita income and the size of the economy in case of India. So this showcases towards the scale of income inequality in India, which hampers the quality of life also. So this is another challenge. And then we have one step being stated as misguided policy step, which is the banning of BITs, which is bilateral investment treaties. Because when it comes to attraction of investment in India, FDI is one important, the policies related to that. For example, ease of doing business, how the policy changes are happening in the direction. And second is bilateral investment treaties. So recently this has been banned. So this is also one of the reasons behind decline in inflow of investments into India. So these are certain challenges. Talking about what reforms, so four important areas. One, promoting ease of doing business. In this particularly, looking into enforceability of the contracts, timely resolution. So this is connected to again IBC 2016 also. We've been talking about the reforms here, like there should be again that debtors or the creditors, they need to be more empowered in this case. The timeline needs to be focused, it needs to be complied with proper obligation and digitization. And thirdly, in ease of doing business would be increasing the predictability and the certainty, even particularly for taxation also. Then second is looking at the trend of capital expenditure. That is very crucial when it comes to again infrastructure creation, because that is directly related to the creation of new jobs, which would be boosting income, which would be leading to formalization of the economy and also boosting aggregate demand at the same time. Because in India, 60% of our GDP growth is led by consumption. And again, revisiting the import tariff structure then can be important area, because MSMEs are majorly getting impacted because of high import tariffs. So which is hampering their in a way the competitiveness of the goods being manufactured by MSMEs, and they constitute 90% by volume the share in the manufacturing sector. So that is there. And third area of reform would be taxation reforms, particularly like fulfilling the pending GST reforms and the implementation of uh, an amended direct tax code is crucial. And fourth is the role of institutions. As recently in 2024, even the Economics Nobel Prize was also based on the same thing, the role of social institutions or even institutions also. They have crucial role in terms of growth of the economy. Again, one case study coming from Aravali's, particularly in the region of Haryana. So we can talk about, is this the kind or the nature of growth, or is this actually the development when it comes to the last mile regions, particularly where people are majorly dependent upon agriculture sector. So here three challenges, particularly in case of Haryana, which have been highlighted in this case study, is illegal mining, crushing of stones, and the encroachments which are happening. So it directly impacts the quality of life. Environment impact assessment being bypassed, despite Supreme Court and NGT also uh, stating that there needs to be a closure of these different like operations which are happening particularly in terms of stone crushing. So role of state pollution control board comes into picture. There is again the local people are stating that there is again it is not possible without the political administrative nexus, and scientific method are also not being relied upon, like no water sprinklers are being used, because in this picture if you look at, you can see the stone dust, it settle downs on the agricultural fields, and it appears to be that like it appears to be a layer or thick blanket of a snow. So this is also impacting the livelihood of the people and agricultural productivity. At the same time, it might lead to more desertification of the land. Again, Aravallis is a biodiversity hotspot also, so what about its preservation? So we can say that the trinity that needs to be focused when we are moving ahead with the growth, or we want more of development, is first environment should be taken into picture here, focusing upon afforestation, role of Geological Survey of India, ESZ's ecologically sensitive zones can be created, and they needs to be again followed also at ground, and promotion of ecotourism. Second trinity or pillar here is taking into consideration the livelihood of the people, the quality of life particularly, and third, people, because at the same time it is leading to more number of diseases and elderly are getting affected. For example, tuberculosis. And at the same time, overall major impact of this would be the that it is going to weaken the trust of people also in democracy, because if they are able to identify that it is not possible without the political or the administrative nexus, so it would lead to that and also widen the social inequality as well.
So here with the pollution is impacting from the stone crusher, stone dust mining, sand mining, and movement of the construction material from one part to one place to another with the use of trucks. उसके कारण नहीं हो रहा है. तो there has to be certain guidelines with regarding to MMDR Act mining for the captive mining, as well as the protocol which needs to be followed for the transportation of the mining material. It should be covered, and the overall mining, if it is open casting mine, then it has to be filled certain date after. तो इसे स्टोन क्रशर माइनिंग का इसमें डिपेंड.
As we were talking about that, stone crushing, it is leading to increased number of TB cases. But what are the challenges when it comes to dealing with TB, uh, particularly in case of India? So recently, like the WHO, World Health Organization, has identified the significant milestones achieved by India in our fight against TB. That one is the 18% dip in the cases over the past 10 years, which is more than double the global rate. And second is 24% reduction in the deaths in the same period in last 10 years. So this is higher than the global average of 23%. So currently also India accounts for 26% of the global TB cases. So it is again directly related to the quality of life of the people, and in terms of again inclusive development or inclusive growth, the it is hampering again the productivity or the efficiency of even the labor force. So different steps have been taken by the government. For example, Nikshay campaign is there. We have Nikshay portal also. TB elimination target of 2025 by India. So here the challenge is firstly the which has been recently come to the limelight is the shortage of drugs. So India being again projecting itself, or we are moving, we have the target of being the world's pharmacy. So we have this advantage of the generic industry, the pharmacy industry, the developments which have happened. So despite that, if we are facing the shortage or the challenge of shortage of drugs, it raises questions again about the last mile availability. Why again we are not connecting the availability of drugs with the Jan Aushadhi Kendras? That should happen. And here another challenge is that because of these shortage of drugs, it is further accelerating the problem in the form of that if the drugs are not timely consumed, because in TB that is an important point, it leads to antimicrobial resistance also amongst the people. So that is the challenge. And apart from this, we see nearly 50% of the patients, they then face the risk of death also. So what about their fundamental right under Article 21 of the Constitution also? Now, eco-friendly fashion practices, or as we talk about climate positive solutions or sustainable fashion. So India again generates approximately 1 million ton of textile waste every year. And we are also one of the largest exporter of the textile sector. So it becomes more important for India to move in the direction of sustainable fashion. Challenges here includes the sector is majorly unorganized. There is lack of recycling. Only 25% of the textile waste is recycled in India. The rest of it is either incinerated or it is dumped in the landfills. Then the rise of fast fashion, and which is again short-lived fashion also. So we need a shift from fast fashion to forward fashion, which is sustainable at the same time. And fourth challenge is the synthetic fibers, which is again amplifying the problem of microplastics at the same time. So, what are the solutions? Promotion of circular economy is important. In India, we are not seeing much rise of the, like for example, thrift store also, thrift stores or the second hand markets for the textile sectors. Then EPR is there, extended producer responsibilities, and innovations should be a part of that. How the clothes which become old, so how innovatively can we use them, or they can be reused under circular economy? So in this article, one example we have is the circular khadi project in relation to the innovation. So it's a collaborative project, and it is between Conserve India. So it is what it is doing actually, as the name states, the circular khadi, the circular economy say it is related. So it is basically recycling जो handloom cotton waste fabrics and yarns hai, and that is firstly getting integrated into the khadi, and also at the same time it is creating eco consciousness clothing in the form of like make using algae and celluloids for like in case of making fabrics, or like making of the sequins you can see in the picture also. So this would be having twin advantage at the same time. One is recycling of the textile waste, and second would be even making khadi more competitive, so that everyone it becomes affordable for all in a way, and competitive in terms of exports at the same time. So this is one example. Then in terms of awareness generation amongst the consumers, we can promote more textile swaps. NGOs like Goonj is particularly working in this direction. And role of institutions also, like the fashion institutions, like we have NIFT in Delhi, the National Institute of Fashion Technology. Are we having courses in this direction about how to make use of textiles or fashion industry, how to make it more sustainable, eco-friendly, and climate positive? Apart from this, we have Khamir also, which is again a platform for the crafts, heritage, cultural ecology from Kutch, Gujarat region. So you can see the rise of startups also in this sector, and that's how we can move forward in the textile industry.
For the textile, which is a mostly informal sector, it can be used as a soft power. For example, India has many tribal based textile. We can promote it with the use of climate friendly technology in the western countries to get more and more remuneration for the SSG as well as NGO that are employed in these areas. तो उससे इनकम भी बढ़ेगा.
And why mental health patients continue to stay in institutions after rehab. So here we are seeing again one of the challenges. It is so mental health and the treatment to people is not just the only, we can say, the challenge. Here we are seeing, for example, the National Human Rights Commission has highlighted this thing, where the government run mental health institutes are facing this challenge that after the treatment has been completed, still patients or the people are not leaving it. Here we are seeing the challenges in the form of family sees that the stigma still continues with the people कि आपको एक वो tag मिल जाता है. So that is one challenge. Language barriers is also a challenge that is being faced, which is being stated by them. And also the institutions, they do not have the will to go that extra mile and find the family members if family members are not contacting. So we need certain changes in the Mental Health Care Act of 2017 also. And here the role of states mental health review boards, they also need to review the situation also. So in terms of monitoring the situation, that is also needed. And apart from this, we can say that the provisions, one provision, the Mental Health Act of 2017 is a person cannot be admitted to a hospital or mental health institute for more than 90 days. So they're still staying more than 90 days. So when it comes to again the healthcare sector, the reforms when we're talking about in India, it is not just the preventive healthcare. Firstly, again, looking into other pillars of curative, preventive, and palliative healthcare is important. Recently, geriatric healthcare is important. That's important to achieve our target of a universal healthcare for all. Recent talk about the TB, the target, and again the challenges faced there. So mental health is another thing. So in mental health also, the challenge is also rising amongst even the youth also, the children also. So identification is another challenge that we see. Then finance commission, so states the challenge before the finance commission. So this again, the writer is since the chief minister of Tamil Nadu, so it is more skewed towards the interest of Tamil Nadu here. But overall, if we look at this broadly, so firstly, it is talking about what changes or reforms should happen in terms of reference of the 16th Finance Commission, whose chairman is Arvind Pangaria sir, and its time period is from 2026 to 2031. So it is stating that given the global changes in the economic trends, firstly, the terms of reference should be in that it needs to be in synergy with that. So terms like friend shoring or reshoring, where we see changes in international trade is also happening and investment patterns is also happening. So there needs to be equitable distribution, the particularly states who lag behind than the better performing states, and also at the same time the high performing states, they shouldn't be penalized in a way. So how to ensure that their growth trajectory is not getting hampered or it is not slowing down. So one reform that is being suggested is that should we increase the divisible pool share to 50%, as again under the 15th Finance Commission it was 41%. So should it increase to 50% is the question here. And also, when we're talking about the cess and surcharges are not the part of central divisible pool. So whether any one of them should be made a part of it or also not, because the government in it gets major amount of tax revenue from these two aspects also. Then the challenges, other emerging challenges that different states are facing is like changes in demography which is happening, the urbanization, so they need more of financial funds also. And another thing is the state's capacity to generate the consumption based tax revenue, that is declining at the same time. So both the things are in a way counterproductive, and ensuring that these progressives or better performing states do not get into the middle income trap if they are facing the challenge even in terms of fiscal mismanagement also, that we talked in context of Kerala and even Karnataka. So rising share of the old age people, which is again the concern is that you grow old before becoming rich. And Tamil Nadu is witnessing the fastest rate of urbanization in the country. This is one case study. So the division of the terms of reference of financial resources, it goes beyond just the financial or the fiscal arithmetic. So even this is going to somewhere going to decide the trajectory of the India's target of being Viksit Bharat by 2047. So that's there. Now, this article is talking about after the again the rising role of social media, how justice delivery is getting impacted or how it is getting influenced by the people's perception or the societal pressure in a way through social media or by trial by media. So in this case, we can say that the, for example, certain examples of cases are given here. For example, the Nirbhaya case of 2012. So we can just say that because of that pressure, the the pace of justice delivery was faster now. But even if in absence of social media also, if we think for a second, the outcome is not going to change. We are not going to decide the cases on the basis of, again, what people are saying. It will be driven by constitutionalism. It would be driven by what the constitution says. And also another question, if the social media or the hashtags or these trolls are there being done of judiciary on social media, and the Nirbhaya case was there, so did it really change the situation on the ground? We still see these heinous crimes happening against women. So what about that? And another, again, case in context of India, the Jessica Lal case also. So it's ultimately about the integrity, maintaining the impartiality, and also social media emerging, we can say, as a distraction also for the judicial or the judges also. So ensuring again due justice is delivered, meaningful judicial reforms, they are also happening, and it requires patience and resilience at the same time from the external pressures. So ultimately, justice is prevailing over this sensationalization which is happening through social media. And as Mahatma Gandhi ji said, that an ounce of practice is worth more than tons of preaching. So that's what we can talk about here, the role of social media. So one thing which is majorly being emphasized upon, the economic reforms that we're talking about. So deregulation is going to be one important pillar going forward in the upcoming economic survey, as being stated by our chief economic advisor, V. Anant Nageswaram. So the economic survey for 2024-25 would be presented in the upcoming budget. So here again, it is talking about certain challenges that we have been able to identify the changes in the economic trend firstly, and how deregulation is important. So firstly, we see that again the growth is getting hampered because of the slow growth in the wage rate, which is again very important factor of determining again the consumption pattern. If that slow growth rate or the wage growth rate also is directly linked with the changes in the disposable income of the people, so directly we can say the Keynesian theory of aggregate demand is getting impacted, because Keynes emphasized upon the demand side of the economy. So what solutions did he talk about was that the role of fiscal policy or the role of government becomes very important in terms of reviving back the economy. So that is just one aspect, broadly speaking here. So deregulation simply means letting go of the regulations which exist. For example, in case of India, one thing that has been identified here by our chief economic advisor, he states that the number of occupations that are restricted for the women in different states, if you add them up, it comes to be 118 restrictions on particularly women. So how are you going to then ensure that women labor force participation rate increases if there are so many restrictions across different states? So these are definitely deemed to be risky. And when specifically at the time when we are seeing women fighter pilots, they're participating in the defense, they're flying the commercial airlines at the same time. So this is one example of where deregulation would be possibly coming up in future. And creeping informalization is another challenge, specifically which has occurred after COVID-19 pandemic, where we see rise of contractual employees has happened, rise of gig economy has happened, and also there's this challenge that slow wage growth, despite we see that the profitability of companies increasing by 4 times in the last 4 years. So again, this is an indicator of rising income and wealth inequality. And also, like cost of capital, it has this has to become lower. So cost of capital directly linked with the monetary policy changes, ensuring employment income growth happens, and thus spending for the growth is also being realized at the same time. How changes in savings would be happening, and that would be determining the changes in investment also. So ensuring again that it is the growth that happens in future is not jobless growth. So the role of, again, MSMEs would also be particularly seen into, looked into, making them viable and vibrant, as we say that making MSMEs bankable. So there needs to be right balance between, again, capital intensive and the labor intensive growth also. So in terms of finance also, like MSMEs, they still see that the cost of finance is a major challenge for them, even if we say that they now have the access to formal credit. So still they're relying upon the banking sector, the commercial banks particularly catering to their credit needs, which is again a challenge. What about then the relevance of regional rural banks or microfinance institutions or the small finance banks? And then learning from, again, certain international global models like Germany and Switzerland in the context of the reforms which are being done in the manufacturing sector, or raising its share in GDP, as India has a target of 25% for particularly the MSME sector, or the manufacturing sector on the whole. So we can learn from their experience and their growth trajectory also.
But regulation, it is very important for the emerging country like India because of the informal sector of the economy in India, because we need code of wages, code on uh, overall OSH, operation safety and hazard. We need fire auditing. So regulation is also important, but not in areas where it is leading to the more government minimum governance. For example, यहाँ restriction लिखा हुआ है
Hmm.
on the women in separate area.
We can
But
say, हाँ,
हाँ,
regulation जहाँ पे it is a hindrance, that
hindrance,
area
हाँ.
requires attention. Then recently, Prime Minister visited three countries, Nigeria, Brazil, and Guyana, which is located in three different geographic regions, all located in global south, that is Africa, Latin America, and the Caribbean region. So a summit diplomacy, we can say, is emerging in case of India's foreign policy. That is again a part of it. So here, again, as we've talked about the role of the global south, the developing countries in the upcoming global growth is going to be very important. We can say that kind of a saturation has been achieved as on the part of the countries located in the global north. So, looking again specifically at each country and the role of each region, firstly, talking about Africa. So, in Nigeria, it is the fourth largest economy of Africa, located on the western side of Africa. It participated in the G20 summit. It was invited to the BRICS nations also. And again, it is the recent chair of the ECOWAS, which is a very important player, or the platform for strengthening the relation with Africa, which is economic community of West African states. So the different advantages or the areas that we are focusing upon in terms of strengthening our relations or diversifying our relations includes trade, investment, education, no healthcare, like it's everything, almost everything is being covered. Then measures being taken against terrorism, piracy, extremism, and radicalization at the same time. Then we talk about again Brazil, so global south, the role was highlighted during the G20 summit. There's Rio Declaration was highlighted, social inclusion, so more related to, again, green growth or sustainable growth in terms of the relationship with Brazil. Recent emerging pillars that we talk about: social inclusion, sustainable development, reforms of the global governance, and also better, bigger, and more effective multilateral development banks. So WTO reforms or global alliance against hunger and poverty was also launched. So these are the areas as far as Brazil is concerned. And when we talk about Guyana or the Caribbean region, so we see that role of Indian diaspora is very crucial. So 40% of the people of Indian origin stay there. So it's important from the perspective of remittances that India receives. In terms of energy resources, also their role is important. Then digital collaboration. Globally, India's digital public infrastructure is being appreciated. It is being acknowledged. It is being more researched into that how we actually achieved this merely in a span of 9 years, when it is stated that countries achieved this scale and intensity of financial inclusion in 47 years approximately. So these are, we can say, the areas. So India, in a way, we can say multilateralism is being focused upon, and the role of global south in a way. And smart snacking is on the rise among Indians. So the question, firstly, why only limited to smart snacking? And also these smart snacking, the products that are being catered to, as in the picture, you can see that again, these are packaged food in a way. So even they are also not completely safe. How much are we again into firstly looking into the nutrients which are specified on the backside of these products? Are we reading them? Are we actually going into the details or not is one thing. So awareness generation is important. And also we are having more of like the packaged food which is called the dead food also. So it leads to sudden spike in the blood sugar levels or the blood glucose level, which is actually not good for our body. So glycemic index is related to again the diabetes aspect, or even somewhere looking into the role of again how we can the make interesting our जो indigenous like consumption से related चीजें हैं. So making them available on these platforms is also important. Then comes the role of again regulation of these food processing industries at the same time. And one important fact that Japan's sake, so it is also kind of a snack which they offer, but it is very, very much integrated to their cultural aspect, also essential for the social and cultural events, recreational facilities, which is again a kind of a wine which is made from rice water. So that has been given the intangible cultural heritage tag by UNESCO. So इंडिया में भी ऐसे बहुत सारी चीजें होंगी. सो अगेन द थिंग इज दैट दे आर नॉट सो पॉपुलर, या that needs to be again highlighted. So वहाँ पे role of social media आ जाता है again, role of women SHGs आ जाता है, role of again startup industry is there, or even social media influencers. Why are they not promoting them? And again, talking about the role of MSMEs, so particularly here we're talking about making them more competitive, more resilient. So new financing model की बात हो रही है, how we can cater to the credit needs of MSMEs in a more easier manner, because 90% of India's industrial enterprises in the country, they belong to the MSME categories. And we see that Union Commerce and Industry Minister states that जो ECGC है जो which is again the state run firstly export credit guarantee corporation है, still it is not been able to cater to the needs of MSMEs because of the costly nature of borrowing. So that is why exporters or MSMEs are still preferring the commercial banks for the short term finance. And a day before, we were talking about again the relevance of the lead bank scheme. So, what about that? That needs to be integrated here. And other challenges is the spike in the prices of the commodities. So, particularly inflation, we can say sharp spurt in the freight cost. So, logistics sector is also directly related to the competitiveness of the MSME sector, and the Red Sea crisis leading to longer voyage time and the delayed payments are other external challenges. Particularly, we can talk about. So apart from this, again, we've talked about making overall the banking sector more resilient and more competitive. So we'll talk about this in further detail going forward. Now, role of different private sector players in terms of structural agricultural reforms. So one example here is ITC will be launching this Mars platform, which is Market for Advanced Agricultural Rural Services, where every type of services would be available for the farmers. Like everything, you just name it and it is there. One is the competitiveness with the ENAM, which is there for again farmers only, Electronic National Agriculture Market. So it would be connecting 10 million farmers to the markets. We can again take the leverage of the DPI here in case of the last mile availability that we have been able to cater to. Now the question is that if different players would be coming up with such types of platforms, so it is in a way these services are available on this Mars platform also, and on the gem plot the gem or the enam platform also. So how is it going to be different is one question. Will it lead to again we can say doubling of things, also doubling of services? So ensuring that remains different and unique and again fruitful at the same time for the farmers. Apart from this, awareness generation amongst the farmers about this platform is also important in order to make it a success. And across different states, we can say the private sector can specifically focus on one part of the services. So that can, I think, be able to cater to more specialized and the personalized services to the farmers. So particularly ITC, one branch where it is focused upon is the brand Ashirwad Atta. So one area where private sector can also participate is directly buying from the farmers. So for example, it has like it directly sources wheat from the farmers through its e-Chopal network. So more of digitization integration with the farmers, or more transparency, and equally here we can say that the rights of farmers or making farmers aware is going to play important role in terms of their participation on these platforms. Now the recent questions that were raised in the parliament, so just quickly going through them, the areas which are being again under focus. So one is the food processing sector. It is again a major attractor or the magnet for the FDI recently. So that is increasing in food processing sector. So again, its regulation, its role becomes very, very important. So major countries that includes is Ireland is the largest investor, Singapore, Mauritius. Are we able to see again some innovative things getting included in India's food processing sector? Why these FDIs is going to play a crucial role. So again, it is not just limited to investment or the finance. Second, IMD forecast accuracy improved over last 5 years. So we are moving more towards again automatic weather forecasting, more digitized, adoption of synthetic aperture radars, adoption of Doppler radar system. So this is again very crucial in terms of raising the quality of life or the standard of living of the people. So inclusive development, this is important also from the perspective of the the targeted plans for the management of the natural disasters also. So this is related to with again the agriculture aspect also. Then 30 crore informal workers they have registered on the e-Shram portal. So we can say this is related to inclusive development. Firstly, availability of the data and the data safety is important. It is again an important foundation for the upcoming policies catering to their needs. Like we have again a social security scheme also for them. Then 1.5 crore fine has been collected from the farmers for stubble burning. Now, again, the question is that if in case of India, 80% of the farmers are marginal farmers, or the largest share is of the tenant farmers. If fine is being collected from them, how it is going to ensure that this is going to remain the same for the future or the upcoming times also? Is it going to the impact is going to stay with them or not, or is it even socially justified to collect fines from the farmers in order to deal with the problem of stubble burning? And also, given this, if we say that this much amount of fine has been collected, so whether it would be reinvested in the agriculture sector for again making it more climate resilient, or even particularly dealing with the stubble farming issue. So that is the thing. No plan on law to mandate the legislative impact assessment. Like we have the environment impact assessment, the social impact assessment. So here legislative impact assessment, where it is talking about that once a law has been made, it has been enacted, it has been implemented, so monitoring its impact after its implementation. So particularly this would be crucial for effective implementation of the laws, studying what challenges are there, so we can again quickly go into the amendment of the law and fix those loopholes and the issues being faced. So recently it is under the Law Commission. So it will be reviewing and recommending in a detailed way in terms of the utility of the legislative impact assessment in case of India, how it would be functioning and everything related to that. Now we were talking about that which measure of inflation is going to be more relevant in terms of deciding the monetary policy. So here a member of Niti Aayog, Arvind Virmani sir, states that core inflation with the non-volatile food that must guide the RBI in terms of deciding the monetary policy. Now, why so? He states that if core inflation, which is very important, that has to be there. Now the question is whether non-volatile aspect of food and how much weightage should be given to the volatile aspect of the food comes into picture. So he states that non-volatile food should become a component, firstly because it would be providing more stability. It is going to be more stable because it is naturally non-volatile. And the loophole or the challenge would be that even the volatile prices, they are majorly impacting the end consumer. So how are we going to account for that is the thing. And also the total weightage of it would turn out to be 80%. Like if we talk about only core inflation, its weightage stands at 48%. So inclusion of non-volatile will make it to 80%. That would be again better targeted and more relevant, more realistic. So one recent trend that has been highlighted by the Household Consumption Expenditure Survey also recently 2022-23 said that inflation, the data shows that food share in household consumption has reduced dramatically. So is it because of again rise in the volatile aspect of the food inflation or not? So it is impacting the consumption demand. It has reduced the purchasing power of the people at the time when we see that even wages have grown at a slower pace. So apart from this, he talked about that recent growth shockers. So three main reasons why this might have occurred is one because of the higher repo rate on the part of the monetary policy. We've been talking about the trade-off that exists. Dumping from China is a challenge which is hampering the investment into India and the tariff war between China and the US. So this is impacting again the export sector. So these are certain areas that have been highlighted by. Then agriculture infrastructure fund is again not just making the finance available at the ground level for the agriculture sector. It is again we can say a foundational the role is being played by agriculture infrastructure fund when we see that approximately like what kind of services is it catering to. It is catering to farmers collectives, FPOs, also cooperatives and panchayats. It is in a way very crucial for the overall rural sector development, creation of non-farm jobs, and making it more climate resilient, climate smart at the same time. For example, PM Kusum scheme is there. So it is aimed at providing energy, water security to the farmers. And AIF again has certain role in this also. In terms of micro food processing enterprises, it is in a way converging the objectives that we aim for. So it is being done in different ways and forms. For example, it is providing loan up to 2 crore. It is providing interest subvention also. It is again it covers reimbursement of the credit guarantees fees paid by the banks also. So insurance sector is also being catered to, and also improving the marketing infrastructure and logistics at farm gate. That is very, we can say, impactful because of the impact in terms of reducing the post harvest losses and increasing farmers remuneration. So in a way the pillars that we talk in the agriculture sector reforms that should happen, everything is being targeted by the agriculture infrastructure fund. So the way it is functioning becomes important, needs to function in a decentralized way. It needs to again submit the reports on timely basis. It would be further ensuring that again the fiscal leakages are not happening through it because the amount of fund with it is very huge. So 83,000 projects has been aided by single-handedly by agriculture infrastructure fund. Now, this one change that we are witnessing on the part of RBI when it comes to again stopping the depreciation rate of rupee, the conventional thing that we always talk about is that RBI directly sells the dollars in the market when RBI when rupee weakens or it depreciates. So another measure or way through which RBI is now participating in tackling the weakening of rupee is through NDF market, which is the non-deliverable forward market. Now the why it is firstly understanding this market itself. NDF non-deliverable, why it is called non-deliverable, because जो notional amount होता है it is not actually being realized upon when the entire जो transaction है that is completed, because it is related to the forward market. Future में वो transaction होता है जो आप आज decide करते हो, वो ही amount deliver नहीं होता है. तो that is why it is non-deliverable and forward, because it is related to the future aspect. You decided the prices are predetermined. सो आरबीआई इज पार्टिसिपेटिंग थ्रू दिस. तो इसका एडवांटेज ये है कि डायरेक्टली जो हमारे फॉरेक्स रिजर्व है उसके ऊपर इम्पैक्ट नहीं आएगा. एंड आरबीआई कैन 24/7 मॉनिटर द मार्केट एट द सेम टाइम. तो आरबीआई इसको कैपिटल मार्केट के थ्रू पार्टिसिपेट करके एज अ, आप अगर लेमन्स लैंग्वेज में इसको समझो तो एज सिंपली अ ट्रेडर आरबीआई एक्ट करके इट इज गोइंग इनटू द स्पॉट प्राइसेस. जो अभी स्पॉट प्राइसेस करंट जो प्राइसेस चल रहे हैं उनके बेसिस पे इट इज गोइंग इनटू द कॉन्ट्रैक्ट्स. तो फॉरवर्ड मार्केट पर्टिकुलरली हम यूज करते हैं फॉर hedging, for reducing the risk. So that's how it is dealing with reducing pressure on the Indian rupee through intervening. And the opening level जो मार्केट में भी जैसे ट्रेड होता है रुपी में, करेंसीज में, हर एक करेंसी में ट्रेड होता है. सो वहां पे भी आरबीआई विल बी एबल टू रिड्यूस द वॉलेटिलिटी. अगर जैसे मार्केट ओपन होती है एट 9:15, तो आरबीआई एक बहुत बड़ा ट्रांजैक्शन करता है जिसकी वजह से मार्केट फिर सुबह से ही वो स्टेबल रहती है. वॉलेटिलिटी इस मैकेनिज्म के थ्रू भी हम कम कर पा रहे हैं इन द द मूवमेंट ऑफ रुपी और द वैल्यू ऑफ रुपी अगेंस्ट डॉलर. तो रिसेंटली इट इज वी कैन से स्लिप टू 84.74. Now talking about the growth of South Korea. So we have seen that martial law was imposed, so there is unstable conditions. So firstly, it is capitalism or post 1950s, after the war, how the South Korean economy has grown. Majorly it is dependent upon the export oriented industrialization, so it is the manufacturing sector, state's role in the planned economy, and third is the keyword, which is the chaebol led development, which is the families which are, driving different industries. Like for example, Samsung is there, Hyundai is there, LG is there. So that's how it has been able to grow. And rapid industrialization was seen after 1950-53 war. There was rise of middle class. Now there are certain exceptions also, that for example China, like in a way it is stating that here it is talking about the impact of economic growth on the polity of an economy. Like the capitalism, it led to establishment of democracy. But in case of China, the economic growth did not democratize China. Economy still flourished, markets took their own shape, but again, it didn't democratize, or it grew in a different political way. So this is not again something which is constant across different countries. Now, again, we talk about the role of the business correspondents or the banking correspondent, particularly. So, here we see the female business correspondents. Their role has been very crucial. Firstly, directly that we are actually appointing or training female business correspondents is a one major reform step. Second is when they're talking to other female customers, they are more comfortable, they are more willing to make transactions, they're more willing to participate in the labor force, be it like a businesswoman. So that is one, we can say, the challenge that they have been catered to or they've been able to solve. So apart from this, they themselves face certain challenges in the form of like balancing their work and the household responsibilities. So this it indicates us towards the reforms needed in the care economy. Like Palna scheme is there, the crèche facilities are being opened up. And then another challenge, safety concerns is there when they're visiting the remote areas. Then the cultural and the societal barriers are still being faced by them, but that has to be dealt with. Then lack of recognition and the respect and the remuneration. So they being a part of the again informal sector, or as we talk about the Anganwadi workers also. So lack of access of training and resources. So all these would be playing important role in their future growth in the grassroots level of development. So more workshops and seminars are being again attended by women. So last mile mein they are playing the role of awareness generation amongst the women, how important it is for them, how they can achieve the targets or anything that they have in their mind particularly. So that's how their role becomes important. Now we're talking about the banking sector reforms or how it is linked to the performance of even the MSMEs also, and overall financial stability, the banking ecosystem stability in case of India. So here we see that four areas have been highlighted. Why need to again we've always talked about that focusing upon the risk factor. So even now, RBI has also indicated that we need to equally focus upon the non-fiscal risk management at the same time. Like on the fiscal aspect, we have been also able to again been successful in terms of reducing the gross NPA ratio also at the decadal low of 2.8%. So this is the performance or the success we can say. So apart from this, it states that we need to identify firstly the important business sectors by the different banks. So there needs to be firstly synergy in this case when a bank is identifying the important business sectors which are, again, it needs to be in sync with the sectors which are growing at the same time. Then setting the tolerance level, for example, for the loans that they would be giving up or how they would be giving that loan. Like in this case also, we say that climate change also, it has impacted, it is impacting the businesses also, so their credibility is also getting impacted, the fiscal credibility particularly by climate change. So that needs to be taken into account. Then real-time tracking and early warning systems in terms of, for example, a loan turning into again an NPA. So for that, like we have the special mention accounts before categorizing a loan into an NPA. So that needs to be better monitored and it needs to be done in an active way, and scenario analysis and simulations in terms of the future forecast, how things might change with proper like logical reasoning. So role of again data analytics comes into the banking sector also. So the question is now these entire reforms which are being stated here, whether they are going to function in a decentralized way or not is the question. How it would be again realigning us towards the Basel norms, or even Basel norms needs a certain amount of review with the recently emerging changes or the way of banking is being done, or how the like digital arrest and parcel scams, all of that is happening. Now, when it comes to the fiscal management across different states, we have most often talked about the southern states only. So here, Himachal Pradesh is a case study, how it actually relied so much upon freebies that people have become over reliant upon them. Now, even if government thinks about reforming that, that is turning out to be a challenge for the state. So approximately 67% of the entire government expenditure is going in the form of revenue expenses. Also, we need to study the impact that it has been able to bring if so much is the scale of revenue expenditure being provided. So people are reliant upon borrowing, and even that's how the we can say the behavioral aspect has been shaped. So people's psyche is now it is seeped deep into again the populist measures. So it might be possible. So that's how they might be casting their vote also. So that needs to change firstly. And apart from this, it is not stating that it needs to be completely removed. The areas which needs attention, they should be taken forward. For example, the vulnerable section, the poor section. So making the state self-sustainable. So that thing has not been achieved by the Himachal Pradesh state. So in terms of business, like in case of tourism, now talking about sustainable tourism, that should be promoted, adventure tourism, or even the role of again the horticulture sector that is being promoted, or even space tourism in terms of like sky watching that is being promoted. So that needs to be something which needs to be effectively implemented also.
And traditional handicraft,
Hmm.
शॉल हो सकता है इसमें,
One,
शॉल,
one
हाँ,
product,
वुलन,
Jumban.
हाँ, वन
Hmm.
प्रोडक्ट, वन टेस्ट,
Like honey is there, all these mushrooms and
वाइल्ड
all.
हनीज, हाँ, मशरूम,
Hmm.
फिर टेक्सटाइल के लिए जो एक प्लांट स्पीसीज था, फॉर एग्जाम्पल पाइन, उसको प्रमोट कर सकते हैं हिमाचल,
Hmm.
पाइन नीडल.
Right. So that's all for the day. Thank you so much for joining us on Ansarkari. Stay tuned for further detailed sessions coming forward.